Bill Belichick getting interviewed, or possibly he's interviewing them, depending on how you look at it, with the Atlanta Falcons. So the Pat McAfee show talked about this a little bit. So we're going to get their thoughts and then we'll come back and react.
3.5 hours yesterday. That one. Lombo, it was reported that Bill Belichick met with the Falcons for 3.5 hours yesterday. That one was kind of curious for some of us. Is Bill just not really going to say no to any interviews? He's going to just kind of see what everything is going on. And then Dallas is kind of the one that everyone's pointing to. Mike McCarthy goes 12-5 for 3 years, but they really don't have any success past the wild card weekend. What do you expect there? And then also, what is Bill Belichick even doing spending 3.5 hours? Can't he just walk in and be like, hey, 28-3, bitch, I should be the coach? Or,
does he wear the rings?
Yeah. Does he wear the rings into the room? Like, does he just say, you guys are losers, I'm a winner, give me the job? Like, how does that process go? 'Cause picturing him walking in with a tablet, like nervous to show his hand, doesn't really make sense as far as outside looking in, assuming that Bill is going in there with somewhat of a plan if it's lasting 3.5 hours.
Well, look, when he went in there, it's about learning as much about Arthur Blank as Arthur Blank is learning about him, and what the problems Arthur Blank views as with the Atlanta organization, and how he views the structure of what he thinks needs to stay, what needs to go, what direction they need to go. It's really about, can I set up my program? What are the positives? What are the negatives of the place? And it's a relationship between him and the owner, because wherever he goes, there's not going to be any of those, what the mafia calls buffers. There's no buffers in this. This is going to be the owner talking directly to him.
Hell yeah.
And he talking directly to the owner, right? So there's nobody in between. And that has to be a relationship that is comfortable. And I think the 3.5 hours were spent trying to understand one another and understand where he needs to go with his football team. It's a data collection. These things are marriages. You just can't rush into it. This isn't speed dating or the senior bachelor. You got to spend some time on this thing and understand what the hell's going on. And I think that was, and I'm sure there'll be another meeting down the road to go over more of if this takes another step. So I think it's kind of a discovery. Whenever you do a court case, you have discovery. I think this is really what the stage is. If it gets to stage 2, now we're talking about getting something serious.
I love the thought of, I saw this brilliant tweet earlier, and it's Bill Belichick in the interview with Arthur Blank, and Arthur Blank says, so have there been any moments in your life where the odds were stacked against you and you overcame them? And I think that's just a brilliant way to kind of put what this interview process is like, because I don't think it is, kind of what Lombardi just talked about. At no point is this going to be the Falcons seeing if they want to, have Bill Belichick as a coach. I think they would kill to have Bill Belichick as a head coach. I think it's more them, kind of what Lombardi just said, seeing how it would work between Blank and the Blank being the owner of the Falcons. I wasn't saying Blank meaning insert name. How Arthur Blank of the Falcons will communicate directly with Bill Belichick, and if that would work. So, Ryan, let's start with you. What are your thoughts, and do you think this could be a spot for Belichick?
Bill, I mean, yeah, absolutely. I think what we know, we want to talk about the history with Bill. Yes, I saw some comments here earlier. Bill has ties to the Maryland area, Annapolis region. You're thinking Commanders. Yeah, it could be enticing. But again, I don't think that that's going to be the move that the Commanders go in, because they're trying to build towards the future. And realistically, does the team that's trying to rebuild from the ground up, how long is Bill coaching? We know Bill probably wants to coach until he physically can't move. But as you see, not every team wants to do that. Then you go to a team like the Falcons and you go, well, damn, they have pieces that are ready. And I think what I've read is he wants a team that maybe hasn't reached its peak. Falcons haven't reached their peak, but have a lot of young talent where it could snap into place just like that. And we talked about in the past that NFC South is being run by Baker Mayfield and the Bucs, and I love Baker. I love me some Baker right now. It's a great story, especially that he was in a 3-point stance playing defensive end on the practice squad last year. But my point is that division's wide open. And so when you look at who they have, and they're probably going to go get another quarterback, no offense to Desmond Ridder, you sit there and go, well, damn, that looks like a good spot. And Bill Belichick, I think, deserves the benefit of the doubt to go someplace and put together and work with a team. But to your point, how much control is he going to get? Because I think that's something when you've been told, hey, Bill, do what you want for the last X amount of years, and then you go to a different place. I think that's where things might change. I want to bring up, because Brad has been doing these polls behind, and if you guys would like to vote, that'd be great. The first one was about facial hair. If you missed it, a lot of people said the guy should keep it. But the question for this is, which team will Bill Belichick coach next year? Now, the majority of people from the time that we're talking about this have the Commanders as the choice. I don't think it's going to be the Commanders. I do think that the Falcons is an intriguing spot. And also, last thing I'll say with Bill, and I'm seeing stuff about Tom Brady and saying, well, everyone let him go in the draft. I mean, look, to have the stones, though, I will say for Bill to say, hey, Drew Bledsoe, I'm moving on from you. Do you know how hard that is to make? So I think what I like with Bill is he will make tough decisions. And the Falcons, to me, have nothing to lose, because since Dan Quinn left and they lost that 28-3 Super Bowl, the Falcons have been in mediocrity. It's been ludicrous dropping down from the Mercedes-Benz Stadium to celebrate Hip Hop Month or whatever it was. But honestly, that's been the only highlight that's been going on in Atlanta. Bring Bill down there, and I think they win the NFC South next year.
I think nothing. It is hard to look at that division and see a clear-cut favorite going into next year, because even in Tampa, guys like Mike Evans are a free agent. So there's so much uncertainty in that division. Belichick gets down there with those weapons we've talked about, the Bijans, the Drake Londons. They can go out, Kyle Pitts, they can go out there. If he can get a quarterback, I really like what he could do there in Atlanta. Kevin, what are your thoughts on the whole Bill Belichick situation?
Yeah, well, if people have been listening to me on this show for the last couple of weeks, they know that my secret crush team is the Atlanta Falcons, because, and Zach, I know you and your fantasy, you'd have to draft all three of Bijan, Kyle Pitts, all those guys, Drake London. But the whole thing has been, again, get the quarterback. And have you ever had, job interviews, plenty of people have them. And, they ask you, well, do you have any questions for us? And I'm sure if the Falcons say, it's trying to get to know you, Bill, and you're trying to get to know us. It's not just the Falcons grilling Bill Belichick for 3 hours and saying, well, can you do this? And what's your system going to look like? Bill wants to know about them, because Bill has the resume. Bill has the accolades in the championships. And I'm sure the first question Bill asked was, are you going to go get me a quarterback? Because I think the last thing he wants to do at this stage in his career is go through another Mac Jones, Bailey Zappi, Malik Cunningham carousel. I mean, imagine if that team brings in Belichick and the good trades for Justin Fields. Like, those two coming in, I think, raise the ceiling of that team exponentially. And what are we seeing in the NFC? You talked about it with the NFC South, but the whole NFC, it seems like it's 49ers. And then, Dallas got embarrassed at home. The Eagles, we just talked about, it might be going through stuff. The Lions are an up-and-coming team. But after San Francisco, if the Falcons can, their defense, they added Jesse Bates and they got a lot of guys there. I think they can improve in a year or two of that. If Belichick comes in and they get a quarterback with all those offensive weapons they already have, those young offensive weapons, I think it's a good fit. And Jeremy Fowler of ESPN, I saw the report that, he's apparently, Bill Belichick might be looking to coach one of these really talented but maybe underachieving teams. I think if you want to place a team in that category that has an opening, maybe the Chargers, but I think the Falcons are kind of that 1A, if that's really what Belichick's looking for right now.
Yeah, I think it's going to be extremely interesting to see how he would handle going about finding another quarterback, because like you said, I don't think he wants to go through that uncertainty again and sitting there thinking, okay, is this, are we having another tryout where I don't know who my quarterback is going to be? So it will be really interesting there. Rocco, you got anything about where do you think Belichick ends up?
Dude, I have no clue. I think it could be Atlanta, and that would be one of the funniest hires in recent coaching history. I think the only thing that the Falcons could do to make this right is to post the hiring at 328. That would be fantastic. Like PM, they post the graphic and just don't say anything about it. Bill Belichick's the new head coach of the Atlanta Falcons, because it's just looking back at that, it's my first question is the Falcons. It would be like, why did you have to do that to us, Bill? Like, why did you have to make us suffer? Now we want to bring you in, make you our head coach. You have to make it right in some way, shape, or form. But you guys hit the nail on the head with talking about their skill players, their young skill players, and how talented they are in Bijan Robinson and Kyle Pitts and Drake London. And I think that Bill Belichick looks at that and he's like, okay, he's like, I can work with this. But to your point, the quarterback situation, that is a big question. It's like, who is the Falcons quarterback going to be in 2024? Who's that starter going to be? And who's Bill Belichick going to be able to develop? Is it going to be a work in progress? Is it going to be somebody that's already proven? Who are the Falcons going to go out and get if that's the case? And I think the Falcons are I don't know if they're a better fit than the Cowboys if the Cowboys decide to part ways with Mike McCarthy and go that route, because Belichick, it's always going to be Jerry Jones' team. I mean, same thing with Arthur Blank, but like Jerry Jones is the GM, he's the owner, and he has total control over whatever he wants to do. Whereas I think Belichick could have more of a hand in what they do in Atlanta. And, while they have a GM, he could kind of like have his way there a little more than he would in Dallas. But Dallas's roster, looking at that, it's much more appealing at this point in time than the Falcons roster. So I could see him either going to Dallas if Mike McCarthy goes, or I could see him going to Atlanta. So those are the two teams at the top of the list right now.